Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be reviewing 3 films on one video. This is probably going to be something that I'm probably going to start doing a lot more now with more and more movies coming out the same weekend, unless they're like big releases. If it's kind of smaller releases or more streaming movies and everything, it's really hard to shoot and edit like 5 individual videos for 5 reviews when I could just kind of lump them all together. So that's basically what we're doing here. I don't know how many times I'm going to do this. I might do this quite a bit depending on the releases of a lot of these films. But that's what we're going to be doing here today. We're reviewing 3 movies on this video. I Want You Back, which got released on Amazon Prime. Marry Me, which got released in theaters and on Peacock. And Death on the Nile. All 3 of these movies all have pretty solid casting for all of the films. 2 of them are obviously more, rom-com related that were released around the Valentine's Day time, and then another one, Death on the Nile, is more just a mystery film sequel to, I think it was 2017, I believe, Orient Express, or Murder on the Orient Express. We're going to start with our first review, which is going to be I Want You Back, which is on Amazon Prime. Of the 3, this was probably the one I was probably the most anticipated for because I love Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Jenny Slate, I've liked in, little things here and there that she's on, mainly probably Parks and Rec. But the real thing about this film, and I said this to my co-star Brian, or co-host Brian, is that this basically felt like Addicted to Love, the reboot, or Addicted to Love 2, which if anyone who doesn't know what Addicted to Love is, it's a rom-com from the 90s, maybe early 2000s, I think it's late 90s, with Meg Ryan and Matthew Broderick. Basically kind of the same premise. You got 2 characters. In this film, it's Charlie Day's Peter and Jenny Slate's Emma, who have both been broken up by their significant others, and they both come upon each other and decide that they're going to try and break up each other's significant others' new relationships, so that way they can get back together with each other, and then chaos ensues and all this kind of stuff. And that's basically the plot of this film here, with Jenny Slate's Emma's ex being Scott Eastwood, who plays Noah, and Charlie Day's Peter ex being Gina Rodriguez, who plays Annie. The film itself, for a Prime film, or for like a streaming film, it's fine. It's definitely a fine one-watch, viewing. It's not something I would say ranks up there with some of the rom-coms that have been getting released on Netflix lately, like Set It Up or Always Be My Maybe, where those ones were fun and energetic that you would always go back and rewatch and feel good about watching. Charlie Day is as charming as ever, which is weird to say because anyone who watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Charlie is a very funny character, but he's crazy and wild. And Charlie Day's Peter is just the kind of the sweetest, nicest guy in this film, and he's definitely the one character that you definitely root for throughout this film. Jenny Slate, for me, Jenny Slate's great in small doses, like 5-10 minute increments. Given her a whole movie, it kind of gets on the grating side a little bit, but there is a part in the second act where she has to basically kind of become part of a school play that really kind of made me endure her character better and really enjoy her character more. I'm not going to say what play it is, just watch the movie and you'll find out, but it definitely made me like her character more, because there's the first 20-25 minutes of this film, it was kind of turning me off because I was just kind of not into the characters. I wasn't kind of into the story. And then when we finally get into the Peter and Emma starting to actually try to go into effect of trying to mess with Annie and Noah's new relationships, that's when the story starts to become a little bit better. I do like the duo of Charlie Day's Peter and Scott Eastwood's Noah. When they're on screen together, I think they actually mesh really well. And I actually had a lot of fun watching those 2 together. Emma, or Jenny Slate's Emma, when she's doing the school production, I think that storyline for her and for the movie itself, I think works really well. Once we get past those points and we get to the inevitable breaking point of the film, or the third act, where in normal rom-com standards it's when either everything goes to hell, or you start to catch the feelings, then one person messes up and they got to scramble to get back together before the credits roll. That whole section felt very rushed, and it just kind of felt like they spent so much on Act 2 on setting the pieces up and building up to the inevitable moment that when the actual moment itself does occur, there's only like 10 minutes left in the movie. So they have to go with dropping the moment, getting to the inevitable turn of the film, and then having to pick up all the pieces and kind of get happy endings for everybody in like 7 minutes before the credits roll. And with these kinds of movies, you need to let it breathe. You need to let these characters grow and kind of become better people in the process of what they were already doing. And I Want You Back really just kind of rushes through to the finish line without really letting these characters kind of, outside of I would say Charlie Day's character, they really don't really get the time to become better people. I do say Annie's boyfriend Logan, or new boyfriend Logan, played by Manny Jacinto, who many people know from The Good Place. He definitely gets a lot of screen time, and he's a very funny guy. But Scott Eastwood's Noah's girlfriend, Clark Backo's Jenny, really doesn't get a whole lot of screen time at all. So you really had a hard time kind of really figuring out the crux of their relationship, or really finding reasons why Noah shouldn't be with Jenny. Whereas with Annie and Logan, you could kind of see why maybe they didn't work, or why, it would make sense for Emma to try to break them up, where there really wasn't a reason for why Peter should try to break up Noah and Jenny in the film. So it was just kind of an uneven story through this. Then, here's the bottom line of the film. Charlie Day's Peter really doesn't do anything to try to help break up Noah and Jenny, except just becoming Noah's friend. Which, it's fun. It is. But it's just, at the end of the day, when you're watching this movie, it's a fine rom-com, a good one-time watch. And definitely, like I said, it's not going to rank up there as one of those rewatchable rom-coms that you always go back to every few years and reminisce of how great this movie was. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I Want You Back, or Addicted to Love 2, really just kind of really didn't hit the mark. It's fine for what it is, but there's a lot of hiccups and failed opportunities throughout the end of the film that really just kind of left it from being a one-hit note to, instead of being a rom-com classic. So I'm going to give I Want You Back a 63%. Going to the next movie, or the next rom-com, is Marry Me. Marry Me is the next out of J-Lo or Jennifer Lopez's rom-com films. I mean, she's done quite a bit. This time it's with Owen Wilson. Now, the premise itself is pretty ridiculous if you've seen the trailers for this film. You got Jennifer Lopez, who plays Kat, who's basically J-Lo in the movie. She's playing a hot musician who's also dating this other musician, and they're basically they wrote a song called Marry Me, and they're going to get married on the last concert of the tour. Everything's all set up and ready to go, and then right before they about to go out there to sing the final song and get married, like TMZ or some TMZ-like, news station basically drops the bomb that her boyfriend, but Bastian, played by Maluma, has basically been cheating on her with her assistant. So Jennifer Lopez, or Kat, basically goes out on stage, makes a speech, and then as she looks into the crowd, she sees Owen Wilson's Charlie holding up a sign saying, "Marry me," and she says, "Okay, yes, I'll marry this random stranger that I've never met." And then that's kind of where the film goes from there. Like I said, the premise is relatively ridiculous, but the big thing is do you like these characters? Are these characters fun and enjoyable to watch? And for the most part, the answer is yes. Jennifer Lopez is Jennifer Lopez. She's always a delight in most of her films. Owen Wilson, obviously, is funny and charismatic and a joy to watch in most of these films. And we haven't seen Owen Wilson a lot lately, so it was nice to see him back on the screen. And with J-Lo and Owen, I mean, that's the relationship that matters. So with them, their chemistry when talking and developing like flirtatious, a relationship and stuff like that, all that really works. What doesn't work, or what just feels awkward in the film, is whenever they have to kiss. Because whenever Owen Wilson and Jennifer Lopez have to kiss each other in the film, whether it be their first time kissing, or whether it be feelings and stuff, or the inevitable ends of the film, it just looks like at least one of them does not want to kiss the other. It just looks awkward. It looks very forced, which is kind of sad, because for most of the film, when they're basically kind of flirting back and forth, it works. it's charming, it's cute, it's all this, but then as soon as they try to kiss, it just falls flat, and it just doesn't look good, and it just kind of is like awkward, kind of like trying to watch Vin Diesel kiss in Triple X, which if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, watch Vin Diesel kissing in Triple X and you'll know exactly what I mean. Granted, this is not as bad as that, but that's definitely the one thing is like you can have these two actors who are great chemistry with each other, but the kiss doesn't look good. It kind of makes everything else feel, inconsequential. The rest of the cast, you got Chloe Cloman, who plays Owen Wilson's daughter, Lou. She's going to be a great up-and-comer. Everything that I've seen her in so far, which has basically been, I think, oh God, was it Spy Me? Or something like that with Dave Bautista and Gunpowder Milkshake last year. I've really liked her, and I think she's got a great future. She's solid in the film when she's given time to do stuff on screen. You got John Bradley from Game of Thrones. He plays Colin, who's Kat's manager. He's fine in the film, but this and now Moonfall from last week, he's not doing his best job of picking his roles. He's not bad in this movie by any means. It's just that this is not going to be a movie that's going to make John Bradley like a star outside of him being Sam from Game of Thrones. Maluma as Bastion, he's fine for the character that he is. He's not necessarily like an evil character. He's just a music star who likes women. He's kind of like Russell Brand, and forgetting Sarah Marshall, but not remotely funny in terms of that. But he's not like a bad guy. He's just likes to hook up with women, and that's basically his character. Sarah Silverman as Parker, who's Charlie's fellow teacher and like basically best friend. She's basically playing Sarah Silverman in the movie. If you like Sarah Silverman's comedy, you'll like her in this. If you don't like her, then you're probably going to be annoyed with her. Michelle Batu, she plays Melissa, who's Kat's like assistant. To me, she was the worst performance of this film. I never liked her character. I never could get into her character. Every time she was on screen, I was annoyed and just kind of turned off by her character throughout the film. She's just unneedlessly mean, and especially towards the Charlie character for no reason. It's like, you're an assistant. Take a step back real quick and act like you're not above everybody. But that's kind of where Marry Me comes to play, is that, like I said, it's not a bad rom-com. It isn't. But when you get to, like I said, the inevitable third act, when stuff goes to hell, they didn't want to paint either Kat or Charlie in a bad position. So their inevitable kind of third act crux that all these rom-coms have, it just didn't make sense why they would do what they did. It just was it felt a little bit like lazy writing to me in the movie itself. Up to that point, I mean, as ludicrous as the plot is, it was fine. Like, it was making its way through the film outside of the awkward kissing of J-Lo and Owen Wilson. But when we got to the third act crux of where they separate from each other, it just didn't make any sense at all. It felt kind of lazy, and inevitably when we get to the end of the movie, I think it kind of redeems itself. Plus the song "Marry Me" is annoying as hell, and you have to hear that song at least 5 or 6 times in this movie. But nonetheless, Marry Me is kind of like I Want You Back. It's a decent one-watch experience. It's not something you would go back and rewatch over and over and over again. For J-Lo's rom-coms, I would say it's probably about middle of the road. For Owen Wilson's rom-coms, it's definitely kind of down near the bottom. I'm going to give Marry Me a 61%. Going to our final film, it is Death on the Nile. Like I said, it is a sequel to, I believe it's the 2017 film Murder on the Orient Express. Kenneth Branagh is back directing and being the lead in I'm going to say it wrong, Hercule Poirot? Hercule Poirot? I don't know. Poirot. I'm just going to say that. It's wrong. I'm kind of just dealing with it. But basically, it's Agatha Christie books. He's playing the lead investigator. It's, Orient Express was, Murder on the Orient Express was about, obviously a murder on a train with a bunch of, witnesses and not witnesses, but a bunch of, suspects. This one is a murder on the boat on the Nile, and it's basically him trying to kind of figure out who the killer is. Pretty simply put, you got twists and turns, and you've got all these these big name actors in there to try to kind of throw you one way or another. The big problem with Murder on the Orient Express was as good as the cast is, as beautiful as the film looks, that's something that Kenneth Branagh is always great at, is making sure that these movies look fantastic, is that Perot, or however you say his name, his character is just kind of blah and dull. And I mean, he's full of life and he's egotistical and stuff like that, but we've also seen a movie recently, well, when I say recently, I see like 2 years ago, that does basically the same formula but has done it better, and that's Knives Out with Daniel Craig. And when you have both these kinds of films, now granted, like I said, this movie is based on the Agatha Christie 1930s, books. It's just, you're watching this, you're like, well, Knives Out is more fun. Knives Out is, to me, better and more enjoyable. And it's hard to kind of put that against these films. But when you're watching these movies and you're watching Kenneth Branagh's character compared to Daniel Craig's character, both are speaking with funny accents and, kind of being kind of over-the-top egotistical because they're so confident they're going to find the killer. I obviously enjoy Daniel Craig's performances more than Kenneth Branagh. And with Kenneth Branagh, there's a lot of times where he will just keep talking and talking, and you're just like, oh my god, get to the point. And there's a lot of that in this movie. The inevitable death on the Nile doesn't come in until about an hour and 5 minutes into the film. So you have an hour's worth of movie that is literally just kind of a bunch of rich people drinking, singing, dancing on a boat with Kenneth Branagh kind of standing around, doing nothing. And that really weighs on you after 40 minutes, where you're just like, this movie really needs to pick up the pace and do something and, catch my interest. Because right now I'm just watching rich people on a boat, and I really don't care about any of these characters. I mean, you got Gal Gadot, as gorgeous as ever. She plays Lynette Ridgway Doyle. She's the main person who kind of she doesn't own the boat, but she's renting the boat because she's like this very rich woman. She just got married to Armie Hammer's Simon Doyle, so this is kind of like their honeymoon kind of thing with a bunch of their friends and family. You got Russell Brand, who plays Dr. Bessner. Tom Baton as Mr. Book. He was in Murder on the Orient Express, so he's kind of like the assistant to Kenneth Branagh's character in this film, which he's probably my favorite part of this film. I actually really enjoyed his performance in this film. Annette Bening plays his mother, Euphemia. Probably said that wrong. You got the rest of the cast too. I'd probably say Rose Leslie as Louise from Game of Thrones. She, I think, is wasted in this film. A standout for me was probably Emmy Mackey as Jacqueline Della Belfort. I really liked her performance in this film. I think whenever she's on screen, especially with Kenneth Branagh, there was a kind of a shot in the arm of just being more into the film. Anytime she's on screen, you feel uneasiness around the main characters of the film because she's the one character that's not supposed to be there, and she's the main crux of the film of where you think everything might go wrong. So whenever she's on screen, that's when you kind of get a little excited knowing that something might happen or something might go wrong. Letitia Wright from Black Panther, she's basically playing the same kind of character that I've seen her in other things, not in Black Panther. She's fine in the role, but it's just kind of a lot of characters, and a lot of them just don't really matter or really aren't that important in this film. Now, granted, when we get to the third act and we really start kicking it with the twists and the turns, there were one or two moments where I was like, oh, damn, I wasn't expecting that kind of situation. But ultimately, by the end, it's kind of just an average, not that much fun movie. Definitely not of Knives Out's proportions where all the characters were fun and enjoyable and you liked watching all the individual characters on screen. This one, I mean, outside of Kenneth Branagh, Tom Bateman, Gal Gadot, Emma McKay, and maybe Armie Hammer a little bit, the rest of the cast just is kind of just all over the place. They interrupt, they constantly are sticking their nose up at Kenneth Branagh's character, which granted I guess they're characters, but it runs a little stale, especially when it takes over an hour to get into the film, or for it to get into the mystery of the film. And then from there, it's about another 40 plus minutes of him just interrogating them, which is supposed to be fun. That is supposed to be the fun parts of these films. It's fun with Knives Out. Heck, it was even kind of fun in Murder on the Orient Express, But in this movie, it's just kind of drags on and just is kind of like tiring to inevitably point to we get to the third act, we get to the actual twists and turns and to the final reveal. The reveal's also not that big of a reveal. If I was making bets on who I thought the people who did what they did in the film, these people were probably, whether it be one person or more people, these people were definitely in my top three of my picks. So when they get kind of like with Scream earlier in the year, there was really no shock factor. It was just kind of like, well, yeah, that's who I thought it was going to be. So it really wasn't much of a shocker. This mystery that it's supposed to be these great mystery films, there wasn't much of a mystery there. They're pretty much straightforward. And ultimately, that's when it's a movie built upon like the whodunit and the mysteries and all that kind of stuff, and you get to the inevitable reveal, and the reveal's not this amazing reveal. It just kind of feels like the last 2 hours were relatively wasted, and that's what Death on the Nile feels like. It looks gorgeous. It's shot beautifully by Kenneth Branagh. None of the performances are necessarily bad. They're just not good. And the twists and turns, outside of maybe one or two moments in the film, ultimately are just kind of there and boring. So by the time Death on the Nile ends, it really just kind of felt like a wasted 2 hours. So I definitely can't recommend Death on the Nile. Now, if you really, really loved Murder on the Orient Express, which I know a lot of people were just kind of okay with it like I was, then yeah, you're going to want to check out Death on the Nile. But if you were like me, where you were just kind of like, Murder on the Orient Express was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. But I didn't really care to see another one. Then don't waste your time checking out Death on the Nile, because it's not going to change your mind. It's not going to make you like it more or less, or it's not going to make you fond of Murder on the Orient Express more or less. It's just another one of these movies that just doesn't quite match up to Knives Out. Plus, this movie's on a boat, and from the one quick glimpse that we saw of the Netflix trailer for Knives Out 2, that's on a boat. So I feel like we're going to be getting a reboot of this here later in the year with Knives Out 2. But nonetheless, I'm going to give Death on the Nile a 54%. Just really missed the mark for me overall. I hope you guys enjoyed all three of these reviews. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming out next in terms of movies, we've got Uncharted next week. I think also Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I'm not necessarily looking forward to, but I will watch, also comes out next week as well. I want to say there's at least one, if not maybe two more movies that also come out next week. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. So be on the lookout for definitely a review for Uncharted and maybe of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In terms of the the Movie Crusaders shows, we just dropped yesterday our Happily Ever After episode where Brian Michaels and I talk about over 50 rom-com couples, and we discuss whether or not we think that they are still together after the credits rolled or whether they are no longer together. So check out that video. It's a longer video, but it's definitely a fun video to debate and discuss your favorite rom-com couples about. Coming up this upcoming week, we have our actor, actress, and director showcase where we talk about an actor, an actress, and a director, talk about their highs, their lows, our favorite films, our least favorite films. We're talking about Paul Rudd, Tony Scott, and Natalie Portman. And of course, at the end of the month, we're going to be doing our franchise showcase where we're going to be going over the Batman movieverse before The Batman comes out on March 4th. So we got quite a few videos popping up and around here, so feel free to check them out. Yeah, till next time, in case I don't see you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.